Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is Lyric, the creator of 15 Minutes with Dad. And today we are here with a special guest, and they're going to take us through the journey of their life, connect us with their family, and give you insights on things that you can do in your life as being a father. If you have not followed 15 Minutes with Dad, the podcast, healing series, or the Fatherhood Speaks, make sure that you go and subscribe to us on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. We're on all social media platforms as well as all streaming sites. So make sure you go and tap in, rate our podcast, tune in with us because when you share it and when you rate it, you let somebody else know that you like it and that they would be able to appreciate it too. Appreciate it too. So thank you for tuning in with us today. We have Mr. Deryck Richardson. How are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing swell, man. Thank you for taking the time out to join us on this evening. I know that you got to get to a family dinner, so we got to
I do.
we're gonna get through this episode and pull the insights that you have and really understand your story. So start off by telling us who you are, if you will.
Sure. So, Deryck Richardson, I am a serial entrepreneur. A lot of people say, "What do you do? You got your hands on so many things." My major business is Richardson Marketing Group. We're proud to be a three-time best place to work in Columbus, Ohio, a two-time Fast 50, recognizing the fastest growing privately held companies in the area also. And that's the ATM machine that allows me to play in other spaces. Also have a life insurance agency here. I'm also in the sunglasses business and accessory business, the coffee business, wrote a book, I speak, I coach, I mentor, etc.
Yeah, man. You are out there doing work, man. I appreciate you taking the time out. That seems like you got a lot of hats to fill. And I'm definitely not going to take too much of your time. But at 15 minutes with dad, we believe that fathers and children can spend 15 minutes with their kids or with their fathers to really make an impact in each other's life and really build that relationship. So let's start off by saying, are you a father? I know you're a
I
father,
am.
but you can tell the viewers
I
that
am.
you're a father.
I am. I am. I have four kids, and believe it or not, three grandkids. I know I look young, but we
Yeah,
we,
little
we go
young
deep.
grandfather, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you would you say when if you're comparing your father, the way you grew up with your father versus how you father, is there a difference or is there some similarities?
Both. My father is an immigrant. He is from the Bahamas, and he came to Ohio State to get his PhD. He's a psychologist, and didn't go back home. Met my mom, fell in love, and the
Yeah.
rest is history. Culturally, there are some differences. They don't have football in the Bahamas. I was a football
Yeah.
player. He's not a
Right.
basketball guy. I love my American sports. And my dad was very much reading. You're going to be a scholar. You're going to be very smart. You're going to be a doctor. And I'm very much, can I just get out
Mhm.
here and play these sports? And so
Yeah,
with
yeah.
my kids, we're very much athletic focused, and at least we were athletic focused when they were younger. Again, they're grown now. And so our house really revolved around youth sports, which our house did too, except for without my dad's 100% understanding of the sport. Certainly at every single game, certainly supportive, but we would just weren't outside throwing the football, right? Get your homework done kind of guy. But the similarities are very similar because as I look back, man, my kids tell stories of how I've lectured them and tried to give them insights just like my father did and really sat them down on the proverbial psychologist chair, just like my dad did.
Yeah.
And they said that was some of the worst punishments they got. In my house, my mom would hit you real quick and
Yeah.
it's over with, and my dad will sit you down and make you think. And our house operated the
Yeah.
same way with my children.
Yeah.
If I'm the disciplinarian, we're going to talk this out, and you're not going to say I don't know. That's not an answer. A lot of
Right, right.
similarities, a lot of
Yeah.
differences in how I was raised by my father and how I have fathered my children.
Okay. And so if let's dive into it a little bit. You say that spending that time developing you in that nature. What is the most memorable moments that you have with your dad, positive or negative?
It's so funny because the most positive moments that I had with my dad was time.
Mm.
My dad, though he's a psychologist, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember in Living Color when they make fun of the Caribbeans with 15 different jobs a month.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
dad is
yeah,
also
yeah.
an entrepreneur, so he has his private practice, but he also works for the Ohio Bureau of Disability Determination as an adjudicator
Mhm.
and spent some time
Right,
as a professor when we were younger also. So three jobs, even though he's an entrepreneur, right, as a private practice doctor.
right,
And so my dad had late nights, man. Oftentimes he was home after we were in bed. Um, and so a
right.
lot of the positive memories were on Saturday when my mom said, "Are yours now."
Yeah,
And so we got to this
right.
the time, the 15 minutes with dad on Saturdays. We would go to the library and we would get books, we would get DVDs, we would watch. We're watching the DVD that we rented or the VHS that we rented from the library, or reading the book that we rented from the library. He's asleep on the couch because he's tired, right? He's worked 80
Right,
hours
right,
this week, but he was there
right,
in the room, and those are some of
right.
the most positive memories. My dad is also a very emotional guy, not in terms of tears or anything like that, but he's a hugger. He doesn't leave my house or come in
Right.
my mom's house without hugging my dad. And I think that really
Mm.
taught me that emotions were okay, specifically in the era in the 90s when we were supposed to be big and bad and tough and not really
Yeah,
showing to our emotions. Back
yeah.
then, it was nothing for me to hug my dad, kiss my dad, when oftentimes my friends weren't doing that.
Like you said, during that time frame, it was not always heard of, and it was the same. Well, I didn't have many men in my life, but what I was always told, and I think that the women in my life reverberated what the men was portraying at the time, and that was a thing to be hard and stuff like that. So that's a beautiful thing to have had, especially in that time, in that era. Yeah, that's definitely beautiful. And what about are there any memories that you feel could have been opportunities, or you felt like opportunities in growth with your relationship with your dad?
Yeah, because he was an intellect, and I don't know what was wrong with us in the 90s, man. And not certainly not everybody. I'm not saying that, but we did not take our grades seriously,
Mm.
specifically in my circle. And again, if the shoe fits, wear it. So I'm not talking about everybody, but it was nothing to come home with D's and F's, man,
Mm.
and just not do your homework and just be out in the streets and hanging with girls and playing sports and just not really caring about your future, not forecasting your future. And so a lot of the negatives when I rebelled and became a teenage father and really was doing some things I shouldn't have done in my teenage years was probably because anytime my dad was involved, he was disciplining me. Remember, my dad is a
Mm.
scholar, he's a PhD, he's a doctor. And so to see
Yeah.
his son, his first son, by the way, well, there's four of us, but I'm the first boy, bring home these D's and F's. I graduated high school with a 1.9. It was disappointing to him. And so that
They let you out?
disappointment, they did let me out.
That's
And I
yeah,
would
they
go
let
on to
you
graduate. I would go on. One of my famous stories I tell the youngsters these days, I would go on to graduate from Ohio Dominican with a 3.75. I just gave the keynote at graduation last year
That's
at Ohio
crazy.
Dominican University as their keynote speaker.
That potential, you
Uh,
didn't realize it early.
I
That's
didn't
yeah,
realize it
that's
early. But some
yeah.
of those feelings were like, man, if my dad's around, it's because I'm in trouble. And he's going to sit me down and make
Mm.
me confront and talk about this. And I really didn't like it. So I used those opportunities to rebel. And again, we have late nights, man. I thought everybody's dad came
Right.
home at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. They didn't,
Yeah.
right? And so I
Right.
had that time, even though my mom was in the house, to overpower her a little bit, right? To do what I wanted to do. And then when he came home, it was like, hey, let's sit down and talk about this because this ain't gonna happen. And so that we
Right.
had this confrontation. My fault, 100% my fault. But the
Right.
negatives were certainly those high school years when I was getting disciplined, and that's really all the
Mm.
communication that we had, or at least the stuff that's memorable. And that's why it goes back to that 15 minutes with dad, right? The good times were when he was
Yeah.
there and when I was a little bit younger, and it wasn't all, hey, you're doing this wrong, you need to do this. But he certainly was a disciplinarian verbally, and I think that I'm such of an alpha that got on my nerves. People tell me what to do, even though he's my dad.
Yeah, yeah, and I think what's interesting is because there's a couple dynamics that are playing in here. There's the cultural dynamic coming from the Bahamas. That's a very close knit to the African diaspora, right? So you have a lot of the cultural aspects from of growth and development. Yo, I'm an immigrant. I came to this country and I worked really hard. I put, like you said, put all these hours in, and a lot of that cultural part. You growing up in a country that culturally is the opposite, and trying to navigate your childhood with a father that kind of came here. Probably was he an adult when he got to the United States? You say he,
He was
came
he
to
was a
study
college
at
student,
school?
so yeah, he was
Yeah.
a college student, came to Ohio State to get his PhD, so yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so yeah, you're coming with someone that was formed in another country with a different cultural background, trying to coach you in a realm that is unfamiliar with almost. That's interesting. That's interesting. And not to say he didn't adapt, but it was more like the age group, like the generation that was coming from behind where he was is almost foreign at that time.
Sure,
But
absolutely,
I say that
100%.
We talked Black Girl Dad Week was happening last weekend, and there was a talk. Roland Martin came and had a talk with Congresswoman, what is it? Congresswoman Beatty, and Roland Martin was talking about these 2 concepts. He said there was the fathers that are present and the fathers that have a presence. And so I throw that out there, and I want you to take those 2 terms, and I want you to classify or cascade it onto your dad in any of those terms, and then cascade yourself and your fatherhood with your kids currently.
Sure. So being present is just that. You're around. This isn't a single family
Yeah,
household. Certainly many men struggle with that because they think they're doing something because they're present. Of course, we're now in an era where drugs and alcohol, and of course in our era too, could play a factor that you're there, but you're high or you're intoxicated. Of course, many men have been known to beat their children and beat their wives, so they're present, right?
yeah,
But to have a presence means to create an influence, to shape
yeah,
and mold a life in a positive manner. And my dad did a very good job of that. And as much as
yeah,
I say that he wasn't there because he was working, I mean, he was working, you got to provide. And it's in his blood to do. And it's funny how I've grown up and now I got my hands on so many different things and I'm not going to be home. I got a family dinner tonight. I'm not going to be home till 7:30 probably.
right,
So it's funny how it comes full circle. It's just in our blood to go work and hustle. But the presence to make sure that you're making an impact, to make sure that they are learning from you, that you are rubbing off on your children in a positive manner is important for sure.
yeah. And how do you apply that in your household when so knowing that you work a lot, how do you apply having a presence? What are some things that you do to have presence in your home, even though you're not always exactly present early in the daytime or something like that, like physically present, but it's still being able to try and have presence inside of your kid's life growing up. And I know they're adults now, but are they're out the house and whatnot. But growing up and now as well, how do you show presence in
Sure.
some of
So I
those
would, yeah, so sure. So we were able to really bond through sports, which is why that's such of a big topic when you talk about the difference in how I grew up. I know that my father likely wished that we could bond through academia, but we didn't. But I bonded with my children, all four of them, through sports. I coached all of them.
right?
And even as they got older and became high school students, I run a nonprofit in Hilliard, the Hilliard Optimist Club. I'm the president of the club. We handle football, lacrosse, basketball, cheerleading, volleyball, essay, and oratorical contests. It's a nonprofit, it's a volunteer position, but I have put my kids in coaching positions even as adults there. So now they're coaching and getting to experience the joy of coaching as well. And we get to talk
Mhm,
about that, right? We really bond over
right.
sports. We have three boys and one girl. The Olympics, man, the gymnastics, the days of Gabby with my daughter was fantastic. She's a
Yeah,
hooper. She's a super hooper. The NBA playoffs, All-Star weekend just passed. Those are
yeah,
times in our house that we really bond. I really bond with my children through sports. There's so many lessons to be had, and when they're on the field, you get to talk about what you learned today. And when they're off the
yeah,
field, as adults, you get to talk about what did they learn when you're watching a sports program. And I'm really able to give lessons and really shape through sports. Man, we were a sports household and
right.
still are a sports household. We have a group chat, and you should have seen the chats that were happening over All Star Saturday night with the dunk contest, and even leading up to the
Yeah,
dunk contest on Friday, and
yeah,
the Super Bowl, same thing. Oftentimes, the kids are
yeah,
at our house watching Ohio State Buckeyes football, right?
yeah.
We're a red zone
That's
house, so
interesting how you that's interesting. Oh, you got red zone?
yeah,
You
so
got
we're a
red
red
zone?
zone house. So
Yeah,
Sundays, we
yeah,
I got something on the grill, and we watching red zone and watching teams over here and over
yeah,
there, and that's just how we do,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So, and I want to talk to that contrast because I like how you laid out the fact. Okay, my dad, although he had a presence, he also he didn't bond with me in the way that you needed him to bond, and this kind of caused some kind of tension. It didn't have. I think that point of contact with your sports would have made maybe a difference in how y'all communicated together, and that's my assertion or my assumption, not assertion. And the point that I wanna make is how tight-knit that you've formed your bond with your kids. I'm sure you've gone through a rebellious stage. I'm going through one right now with my teenage child. Not rebellious, but she has her own abstract thoughts, so I allow her to do
Sure.
that, and sometimes it clash, but I wanna point out the fact that there are most fathers that find it hard to really connect with their children. And something that I found that you have also found that you may have connected to your childhood is that connecting with your kids in a place where they are, with an interest that they have, and really pouring into that interest. I've coached my daughter as well. I still coach her even while she has other coaches, but I'm a sideline coach when I'm the
Yeah,
the
man.
extra.
Yeah.
I wanna make a point to your story on how the be I think that is a very effective way to connect for a father to connect with their child in those places where they feel that I just don't get my kid, or my kid is they do their own thing. I don't have time to do that, or I don't want to figure this out, or I don't know what they do. They do something. I think that is the point at which that is like the door into your child's heart is by sharing the love of something, even if you don't know anything about it. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I sucked at basketball as a kid. I was terrible, I was trash, garbage, uncoordinated. I'm probably a little bit still uncoordinated, but I'm madly in love with basketball now. I was a football player, wrestler, track runner, all that stuff. Basketball, I was like, I just did recreational. My daughter is a really is really good, and I've coached her, and I've only gotten better because I coached her. I learned
Right.
basketball through coaching her. So because she wanted to play better, I had to learn how to coach her better, which taught me how to play basketball, which now we that's something that we both share. We love women's basketball. We seen Caitlin Clark when she came into town and got stumped by the Ohio Buckeyes. But I
Yeah.
say that as it's vital almost for us, for dads to connect with their kids in the place where they are most familiar with, or something that they like the most. And I think that you did a great job, and I think that you've understood where there was a gap, even though you have a good relationship with your dad. You understood that was a moment or a gap in there that could have made your relationship go different had he connected with you in the realm of sports, rather than instead of it feeling like you're having to separate from the house to get sports. You were able to do the sport. It was a household thing, like you've made it in your home, and I think that's a phenomenal approach.
Where you are
Yep,
is important. I don't know how religious you want me to be. I'm gonna just speak from my mind.
yep,
Of the 10 coins comes to mind. There
mhm,
was a lady who had 10 coins, silver coins, I'll paraphrase, and she lost one and she went crazy. And some people say, we got 9. What you do the other one for? But she forgets about the 9 and she looks for the lost coin. And you know where she found the lost coin? Right where it was.
sure,
And so when you lose relationships, you sometimes have to
mhm,
find those people where they are. I'm so glad that you said that.
right, yeah,
It's not just sports. It was the whole cultural difference. Sports certainly was a major
yeah,
aspect, but he could have found me where I was in
yeah,
cinema, in music, in literature,
yeah,
because it was totally different. And I'm not
right,
saying he wasn't looking. I'm not saying that at all, because my dad and I have a fantastic relationship now, and I rely on him for a lot of advice as a man and as a father. Now he's one of the most qualified people as a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, to give men who, as entrepreneurs, we don't have people who we can talk to a lot of the time. So my dad is one of the most qualified
right,
people on the face of the planet to give me advice, and I use that now. And he has given his services to many of my friends and business partners, his professional services now. But back then, I was right there. But the difference, in my opinion, is also the timing. Remember, so also, even though I'm young, I look young, my father's pushing 80. Back then,
mm,
children should be seen and not heard.
yeah,
We weren't taking into consideration the feelings and emotions of children back then. You do this and you do it because I told you to do it.
yep, yep. Don't question,
And
don't ask, don't.
don't question it, don't ask, because I said so, right? And so these are the things that really played a part in me just saying it's not because you said so, I'm out of here, right? You don't watch the same shows I watch. You tell me not to listen to this rap music, right? I'm over here reading
Yeah.
John Grisham. You're telling me to read the encyclopedia. I don't know. I'm exaggerating, but my father is a
Sigmund
scholar.
Freud, you wanna like
You see what I'm saying? And I love sports. And again, he's at every game, bro. Every game.
Yeah,
Never. My dad never missed a game. I would not see my dad. I would see him in the States and not see him at home because he went back to work.
Mm,
He was present
mm,
for sure.
yeah.
But when you say find your children where they are, the parable of the 10 silver coins says she found the 10th coin right where it was. She found it
Mm,
where it was.
yep.
And so I try to find my
Yep.
children where they are. And it's funny because rebellion, it's funny, and also Luke 4:24, and I'll get off the religion, but says no man
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
be a
Go ahead.
prophet in his own land.
Yeah.
So I'm this big time businessman, big time guy in my community, playing politics, do all this stuff. My kids don't think I'm a prophet. They ain't listening to me.
Yeah.
And we've seen some of the same hurdles that I have overcome pretty good. Teenage father happened to my second oldest son.
Yeah. Yeah.
Baby mama drama happened to my second oldest son.
We're gonna
Not
dive
knowing
into that.
what I want to
Let's hold on.
do, not knowing what I want to do professionally happened to, I would say, 2 of the 4 children.
Mm,
And I'm here. I'm trying to find you where you are because I've been there and successfully exited that stage of my life. And they don't want to hear it, bro.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I try to find my
Yeah.
children right where they are, and I try to use those conversations. That's why they say I lecture, right? I'll come on, man. I don't want to hear about how I handled that situation with my baby's mom. I don't want to hear about how I just left this job because I wasn't happy. I don't want to hear. Cause I'm trying to
Right.
find them where they are, and sometimes that's not the
Right.
right answer either, bro. Is my point. So even though
Right. Right.
my father didn't find me where I was, I've tried to find my children where they are, and sometimes that's the wrong answer also. You
Yeah,
know.
I'm learning that too. Let's talk a little bit about, and I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but I do want to get into the part. You say that you were a teenage father, and I was also a teenage father, so I definitely have gone through the journeys of being and for myself, it was a little bit different. I didn't have my dad in my life, and but I was a teenage father, didn't know how to be a man, didn't really have a model of a man to be like. But I had to really carve out what that looks like over time and try to be a father and grow, create dreams, visions, goals, and accomplish things. But knowing like let tell me a little bit about that concept. What was your earliest age, that you had your first child?
So I was 19 when I had my first child.
Okay.
The mixture, and my parents never really said this because I don't know if you did or not, but I hesitated in telling them that I was about to have a
Mm,
baby. The
yeah.
fear of backlash was real. And when I finally told them, cool, let's go. What are we going to do? And the mixture of, they never said it, but the disappointment, the thought that
Mm,
I assume they probably have had of he's throwing away his life was a burning, still burns to this day, piece of motivation for me to succeed in this world.
mm, yeah.
The baby itself that fit in my forearm certainly was motivating.
Oh yeah.
Certainly was
That
motivating
first
to
that
feed
moment,
and
that
shape
first time you
and
touch them.
mold correct. This is motivating,
Yeah.
but also the fact, and they never said it, but also the fact that I believe that my parents and the world think that I'm probably a statistic, a minority teenage father. Now it's time to put on my
Mm,
cape and prove them wrong. Is
yeah.
when I matured. That is when I matured, is when I became a father, period.
Yeah. I say the same thing. It was like a switch when I was in the
Yep.
hospital and I'm holding my daughter and she rips her little finger around my hand and I'm crying because honestly, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I have no
Yep.
idea what I'm about to do I didn't even have a place to stay of my own. I'm living with my grandmother at the time and had nothing. Like I didn't have sheets on my bed kind of thing. It was definitely a scary moment, but I told myself at that point, I'm going to change your life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to create a world where you don't have to live the way that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taken time, but it only if I calculate the years, it only took really 7 years. I finished college by the time she was 4. I wasn't even in college when she was pregnant, but I went back to college, finished college by the time she turned 4,
Same.
and then got my first career job and just started, like, really just trying to climb this little corporate ladder, and I'm nowhere where I wanna be, but I know that I'm way better than I was at that time, 10 times better than I was at that
Same, bro.
time.
Same. It's funny because I was that switch that you talk about. I was headed down the wrong path, bro. The wrong path. And when that
Mm,
switch came on and I said, okay, we got to go, that's the feeling that men run from sometimes
mm,
and women.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
feeling that people run from. I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to feel this pressure to make sure that this little
yeah,
being survives and not only
yeah,
survives, but has a life that is valuable. And that is
mm,
why they say I'm not the father. That's
right.
why they're on Maury. That's why they're on Steve
Yeah,
Wilkos, bro. Because they're scared of
yeah,
that feeling. That's the feeling that will turn boys into men. It's
yeah.
also that
I
feeling in the
agree.
hospital you had is the same feeling that will drop the toughest men to their knees too, and they'll start crying.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and
it's
I
time to
put
be
that I
aware.
talked about that moment. I talked about that moment in my book, and when I was found out, I broke my book into different sections of being a teenage father, a growing father, and a the broke father. I break it up to different stages of my life and how I navigated through fatherhood, through my trauma and trying to become an impactful father. But it was like that moment when I found out she was pregnant, I immediately got so scared that I was like, "I don't wanna be here." I wasn't even near her. She texted me. I was at Walmart, and I immediately said, "I just wanna disappear. This is I have no idea what this means." I was just like, "I wanna disappear. Can I run away? Where can I go? Will she find me?" I was like I was thinking of abortion. I was thinking of every single solitary I was like, "This can't be real. I gotta make this go away." And not out of fear of anybody, 'cause my mom wasn't really that active in my life like that, and my grandmother also wasn't that active. I was really out on my own, and so that but it was like, I wanted to do something big with my life, and I was like, "I can't do nothing big with my life." But then I
Mhm.
realized this kinda helped me do something bigger in my life than I ever would have thought I could be. But yeah, that fear definitely crippled me for maybe 25 minutes of texting back and forth with the mother of my daughter. I was like, I hit her with the usher talk. I was like, "Put that on everything. Are you sure? You still put
Mhm.
you tell how many tests you take." She said she
Right.
took 5. But, I say that to say, during the pregnancy, I was there, but I didn't have a presence. Like, I was there doing the motions, but emotionally and psychologically, I was like it still wasn't real to me. But when she was born, first off, when she came out, I almost vomited, and I almost fainted and vomited at the same time. But then when I held her, it switched. That switch was so powerful. I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna do everything in my absolute power. I would never stop it." And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what those steps were gonna be. I had no path. I had no guidance. I had no mentors. I had no vision of what was gonna take place, but I knew for a fact that for her, I will see a difference. I will make something happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's been up ever since. It's a powerful thing.
It's
Kids.
very powerful, man. It's very powerful. And my mom, man, my mom said something that was powerful a couple years ago. And that was that we have made her a double empty nester because my mom is the one that nurtures the entire neighborhood.
Mm,
So we were the house where all the bikes were out in the front yard. We were the house where the kids just
yeah,
walked in and before they said hello, they're in the fridge. Just little neighborhood kids, right?
yeah,
My mom was that was always her piece of comfort was to be the matriarch of not only our family but of the neighborhood and all of our friends. And
mm,
when she said that, I didn't understand it. I said, a double empty nester. She said, yeah. She said, all these kids were in the house. Then y'all grow up and leave. And y'all want to have kids all
yeah,
young. And so guess who's babysitting them? I am. So now all the grandkids are in
yeah,
the house. And
yeah,
now the grandkids, the core, the
yeah,
original grandkids have started to have their own families and they're not in the house anymore.
yeah,
And she said the house is silent. And I'll
yeah.
never forget, my youngest is 18. He just graduated last year. And we sent him to Arizona to my
Congratulations.
brother-in-law's. And so we were empty nesters for about 6 months. It took about 6 months to come back. And the house was silent.
Yeah,
The house was silent, bro.
yeah.
And
That's
I called my mom. I said, now I know what you mean. Now I know what you mean by
wow,
being a double empty nester.
wow.
And but my mom also was a sense of inspiration because there's no way I can grow up in a house with a matriarch as powerful as my mother and then let down beings that I created.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen.
That's a different type of that's a different type of disappointment to I think that it was like almost like a, "Yo, I already made this decision. It is what it is at this point. Now I have to show up. I have to show up
Mhm.
and I have to show out." And
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
I applaud you. I applaud you on putting that work in and staying present and having a presence in your kids' lives and continuing that to build that family circle that you've continued from your family, and it's a beautiful thing. And I'm like I said, I'm gonna let you get back to dinner. I have one last thing. Can you tell what it what is something that you have that you would have in your heart to tell fathers before we go, to tell fathers um, that you feel would be a not only a nugget of knowledge, but something they can take and implement into their lives right now. Estranged fathers, new dads, or fathers that are fathers to young kids, fathers of teenagers. That whole you've been through the spectrum. So yeah, what do you have?
Man, I got a lot of stuff to talk about, so I know I got dinner waiting at home, but I'm going to go for a
Yeah,
couple
yeah,
minutes here because I'm going to tell you a
yeah.
story, then I'm going to answer your question. A couple years ago, it was more than a couple years ago. I've been in this office now for pushing 9 years. And so we switched from 1099 to W-2 probably 7 years ago. And when we switched from 1099 to W-2, with that comes child support for those who are put on child support.
Mhm.
And I'm a very calm, cool, and collected leader. If I blow a gasket per se, it's once a year. It's I'm my father, right? So let's talk about this.
Right.
Let's have a seat. What's going on? And these men who worked for me were complaining, Lyric,
About paying child support.
about paying child support. And the one guy said, "Man, my baby's mom has a brand new car. Bro, your children ride in that car.
Yeah.
Your children ride in that car. She ain't gonna do nothing but get a bigger house. Your children live in their house.
Facts.
She gonna go get her nails done. She gonna get her nails done anyway, bro. And
Right.
you're sticking her. You're so weak that you are sticking a female, somebody who you laid down with the full responsibility of raising your child, and then going to complain about being financially responsible. Are you serious?"
Right.
I went off, bro, on everybody. I slammed this door. Slammed this door right behind me. And they said, "What's wrong with him?" I said, "The problem is that how can you even raise your children to be strong men if you aren't strong men? How does the world have strong leaders if there's not strong men in this world and strong women? If there's not strong people in this world that are leaders and are men can build and mold, then what does the future of this country and this world look like?" You
Facts.
have a bigger responsibility than to just say, "Hello, son or daughter, I love you." You have a responsibility to shape the future of this country and of this world. That responsibility you accept the moment you lay down with somebody. So if you want to lay down with somebody, you're accepting the responsibility that if a being comes from this, it is my responsibility to make sure that this being makes this world better. How can you do that if you're not present? You're not only letting yourself down, your children down, you're the mother of your children down, you're letting the world down if you do not step up and be a good father. You
Yep.
will fail. Your children will hate you at times. They will love you at times, but they'll hate you at times. You will make mistakes. There's no book on how to parent. But if you're going to accept the responsibility of bringing a life into this world and then run from it, that's the worst thing you can do. And I know that there's excuses out there. "Oh, but she ain't gonna let me see my kid."
Right.
Go to court. "Oh, she got another man around her." So now another man is taking your responsibility. So now you've passed that responsibility on to another man. "Oh, but I ain't got no money." Go get some money. I promise you, there's money out here to be had. "Oh, but this. Oh, but that. Oh, but this." Stop with the excuses and remember your responsibility to raise these children to leave this planet in a better position than it was when you found it. If that does not motivate you, then don't lay down with anybody.